Your attention, masters, mistresses. All systems functional for the Everything Geek podcast.
Hey, this is Rich McDonald, and I play Commander David Mason on Call of Duty Black Ops 2. And you're listening to Everything Geek podcast.
It's James Arnold Taylor, the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Master Plo Koon in Star Wars The Clone Wars, and you're listening to Everything Geek, the podcast.
Hey, it's Leif Gamfert. I played Uncle Ben's killer in The Amazing Spider-Man, and you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast.
Hello, I'm Simon Fisherbecker. You probably know me better as Dorian Moldavar from Doctor Who, or the Fat Friar from Harry Potter. And this is Everything Geek podcast.
Face it, Tiger. You just hit the jackpot with the Everything Geek podcast.
You're listening to the Everything Geek podcast, bringing you interviews from your favorite films and TV shows every week, and all of the latest news. Here's your host, Ruari Williamson.
Hello everyone, you're listening to the Everything Geek podcast. I'm your host Ruari, and joining me today is a very special guest. We have motivational speaker Daniel Cloy, who is one of the two performers that portrayed the correct face walker in The Walking Dead. Daniel, how are you today, sir?
Doing great, Rory. Thanks for having me on today.
It's a pleasure to have you on the podcast today, Daniel.
Absolutely, I'm really excited to be on. Thank you for the invite.
You're very welcome, and I'm glad you finally replied to me.
Yeah, it only took 2 years. Sorry about that. So.
Yeah, definitely. Good things come to those who wait. It's like the gift that keeps on giving, really, if you think about it.
Yep.
So getting right into my questions for you, Daniel. Now, for some of our listeners who may not know, you were born missing both legs and your left hand. Can you tell me about some of these challenges you faced growing up as a result and how you overcame these challenges?
Yeah, so, obviously, like you said, I was born that way. So it was they diagnosed it as a new genetic disorder. It was just something, it was an isolated genetic mutation. So one-time instance, when I was, forming inside my mom's stomach. I guess being born that way is a lot different than having a trauma or some kind of an accident where you miss legs and a hand. Much different because, being immediately faced with that coming into life, you'd obviously have a lot of different obstacles. Mine were not so much in terms of physical pain because I didn't have to, lose a limb. But they're obviously a lot different in nature in terms of growing up with it, faced with how kids. That was probably the hardest thing, was growing up in my early years and my classmates and a lot of the mental abuse and bullying that I went through as a child. I would say that was probably some of the hardest parts of my life. A lot of times I tell people it's not even the fact of missing legs and a hand that was, the most, the hardest part. It was how other people treated me. So, I think that's a little bit different in nature than, if I had been through an accident and missed my legs and hand. But definitely a lot of obstacles. There are physical challenges, obviously, to wearing prosthetics. I've had, everything is a little bit harder, so you have to push yourself a little bit harder. A good example of that would be is, when I was trying to run, I would have to make myself stronger to be able to keep up with everybody else. So I would, be in weightlifting, trying to keep up with the other kids in high school and that kind of stuff. So it was, always something a little bit harder. When I wake up in the morning compared to somebody else, you guys can kind of just hop in the shower and get ready for your day, whereas I have to roll out of the bed, crawl into the shower, hoist myself up in the shower, get back out, and then finally put my legs on and get dressed and get ready for the day. So it's a little bit different than, what people probably experience on a daily basis. But for me, it's become just a way of life. It's a routine at this point since it's all I've ever known as a kid. And, you just got to be able to face those obstacles head on and realize, get over that hump and really start, focusing on other things in life, which is what, obviously I'm trying to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think your story is a really interesting one for that reason, because life is all about challenges, and you've faced this challenge since you were born, but, you've just been able to come up with a really great way to get around it, to face the challenges, because life is all about facing them. Like, there's no point in just saying, this is too challenging for me. You just got to get on with it, and that's what you've done your whole life, pretty much.
Yep. No reason to sit and cry about it, right? There's a lot of people that let a lot of things hold them back in life that shouldn't. I've seen a lot of people have talked to me about it, and they let little things defeat them, and life's a lot bigger than what a lot of people think it is, and there are a lot of big things that people go through, and they didn't get through that. In comparison, I feel like some of the things I've gone through are minute. There's people that go through a lot harder things than I've experienced, and I've seen them be able to overcome that as well. So I'm a big believer in keep pushing through the difficult things in your life, and it's going to make you better as a person.
Definitely. So you've recently started a motivational speaking business, talking about the challenges you faced and how you overcame these circumstances, as we were just talking about. How important do you think it is that people speaking about this are for people to believe they can achieve anything?
Yeah, well, it's huge. It's I had a large calling for that. Personally, is I wanted to give back to people that were struggling with things, and trying to give them a way to get past those obstacles and challenges in their life. Specifically to kids, that's really growing up. I think all of us go through hard things, but some people struggle with it more than others. Some people are targeted a lot more than others, and others just are mentally not as prepared to be able to handle a lot of abuse and difficulty growing up. And so you see there's a massive problem, especially in the United States, not only in the United States, obviously it's prevalent in the world, but there's something like 40 million people that struggle with depression in the United States, and I think you're seeing that we're losing the battle where people mentally are not able to overcome challenges in their life, and because of that, you're seeing them. It's causing a lot of major issues, whether it's unemployment or unfortunately suicide. The suicide rate's gone up enormously, and there's a lot of amazing people that could do amazing things with their life, and unfortunately they're taking a permanent fix to a temporary problem, and I think that it's something that needs to be addressed and talked about, and hopefully having a figure of someone who's able to stand there and say, look, let's try and work through these things and tackle things with a more positive mentality. Obviously, there's a ton of speakers that are out there trying to do that, but I'm just trying to make an impact in the best way I can in people's lives, especially for kids that are going through hard stuff. So that's why I got into speaking, really passionate about it, and hoping that I can touch a lot of people, and even if it's not a lot, it just helps somebody that one person that is going through a hard time, then I look at that as a win for me.
Absolutely, because even if you just reach one person, it could make so much difference. Obviously it's great if you can reach so many people, but even if you just change one person, that's just an incredible accomplishment in its own right.
Yep, exactly. So, and that's why I'm doing it. Is I think I've been through a lot of different things in life, and because I've had that kind of diverse background of different obstacles and challenges I've been through, not just, like I said, physically, but in bullying or even relationships. That's another area that I talk a lot about with people. Is you wouldn't imagine the mental trauma I had to go through as a kid, realizing that I was different than a lot of people physically, and when you're going through growing up and wondering how to get a girl's attention, and and all the challenges that go into building a relationship, and then on top of that you realize that you're different than everyone else, it really can mentally play a lot of games with you, and so you have to be really comfortable with yourself and realize that, people that really matter, relationships that really matter, are much more than something that's physical. And, I've obviously went through some really hard times in my life and having to figure out some of that stuff that relates to a lot of people. But, it was well worth it my friends always said that it was going to act like a filter for me, and they were definitely right. So I'm happily married now and have a wonderful wife that's a great partner, and she obviously loves me for the way I am, and I think that's something that can a lot of people can relate to in some of the challenges they go through. But I can tell you that love is definitely real, much more than physical, like I said.
Yeah, that's great, and I'm very happy for you. It's like life came full circle in that regard.
Yep. So, like I said, a lot of different topics to touch on.
Yeah, definitely, and we've touched on some really interesting ones already about your personal life. Now, in terms of The Walking Dead, yeah, because Walking Dead is kind of geeky, maybe a little bit.
Yeah. It is,
So,
yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about it a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, so getting the obvious question out of the way, the obvious two actually, basically, how were you originally cast in The Walking Dead, and were you a fan of the show prior to being cast?
So I'll answer the second one first. I actually was not, I didn't even know the show, to be honest with you. And I guess I'll have to backtrack just a little bit to give you that answer. I was a big baseball player coming up through high school and college. I was a pitcher actually, and did very well. And because of that, I got some media publicity that actually wound up being on the cover of a magazine for our school. It was a pretty big magazine. It went out to like 20 or 30,000 people or subscribers, I think. And so from that magazine, I was actually sitting in my dorm room down in college, and got a phone call from the casting director. Our casting director from The Walking Dead, and I didn't know it at first. It was actually a pretty funny interaction. He called me and he said, "Is this Daniel Cloy?" And I was like, "Yes," and it was from an unknown number. And I said, he said, "Is this the same Daniel Cloy that's missing legs and a hand?" I was like, "Yeah, like who's calling?" And he said, "This is the casting director from The Walking Dead, and we're interested in using you for a unique role we have." And so that's kind of how I got teamed up with those guys. I didn't even know what it was at the time when I hung up on the phone. I had to go ask my girlfriend at the time, which is now my wife, what the show was, and she was like, "Oh, that's awesome! I love that show." And so I got to go down and experience it, and I followed it since then. But I was not originally familiar with the show.
That's a really interesting answer, especially given that it's one of the most popular TV shows out in the world.
Yeah. Well, my friends laugh. They joke with me. They think I live under a rock all the time because I'm always I don't watch a lot of TV. Or try and stay away from the news as well. I'm always kind of isolated from, I guess, the television world. I still don't watch a lot of TV. I think there's a lot of time that can be better spent being productive and whatnot, which probably a lot of people disagree with me on that. I still kick back and watch some for sure, but it's funny because I was isolated, not knowing what the show was, and she was like, "How in the world do you not know what The Walking Dead is?" Gotten some grief since then, but I've caught up on it since then.
That's really great, and I think we can both agree, as long as it's not people binge watching, a lot of productivity can still be done.
Yeah. Those lonely need to eat a carton of ice cream or whatever, and sit back and binge watch some TV. I guess we all have those.
Yeah. I don't tend to binge watch a lot,
No.
but that's because I've got a podcast to run.
Rory, what? You don't have any ice cream filled binge watching TV days? Oh man, that's frustrating.
No, I eat enough ice cream as it is.
Yeah.
And that's only on the weekends. but no one wants to hear about when I do or don't eat ice cream. So your shots as the cracked face walker were the shots that show the walker's missing
Yep.
legs. What were the biggest challenges for you in shooting on The Walking Dead?
So, not obviously not having at that time much exposure to the TV world, or filming world, I should say, is I didn't realize that the props were as real as they are. And so in the scene when you see the helicopter comes crashing through the roof and the zombies are falling through, and it's inside that kind of grocery like store, a convenience store, you see that there's cracked bottles and wine and stuffs all over the floor, and beer and this kind of stuff, and food. Well, the thing is, that's actually real. So it's real wine, and beer and stuff, and real glass, I guess. And so when I'm actually crawling on the ground, I'm having to crawl through all this food and stuff, and so it was getting all over my hands and whatnot. But the hardest part, I guess, was getting my legs off and into the area I was supposed to be filming at, and so I was getting stuff all over me. I was actually cutting up my legs a little bit, believe it or not. But it was, nothing major or anything, just little nicks. But, I wasn't expecting for it to be that real. I thought it would be more kind of CGI, how you kind of see in the movies, I guess. But I thought it was really cool that they did it that way, because the desired effect came out really neat. I mean, obviously they used a little bit of CGI, and specifically in that scene, they actually used a lot more than normal, I think, with the helicopter coming through. But that was a little bit more of a challenge, was like I said, getting the legs off and getting positioned where I needed to be, and then actually, taking part in the scene, and then getting back to, non-invasively getting back to the chair to put my legs back on. That was kind of a little bit of a challenge, but it was fun. It was definitely pretty cool to try and be a part of that.
It's really interesting. That's a really great insight into that scene from The Walking Dead that you were in. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
It'll definitely make my experience watching it very different the next time.
Yeah.
But are you telling me that they wasted that many wine and beer bottles?
Yeah, come on. Yeah. No, it's not overly wasteful. They are definitely minimalistic. It's not like they're out there just shattering cases of, yeah. I'm gonna get the Walking Dead guys in trouble here. But no, they really were. They didn't use an exorbitant amount. It was just kind of the area. But it was funny because when you are watching that scene and you're seeing the other zombies that are going through, and they're walking through the convenience aisles and stuff, and you'll see maybe in the background a case of paper towels or toilet paper or whatever on the shelf. That's a real case of paper towels, and so it's neat when you're watching the show to realize, oh, that's not fake. Like, they didn't just cut that in a green screen or whatever. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. Very nice. So, moving on to my next question. If you had to describe it overall, how would you describe the experience working with the cast and crew of The Walking Dead?
Eye-opening. And what I mean by that is, I think a lot of people have kind of maybe a perceived look, or I know I did at least, in the filming industry, and that everyone thinks Hollywood's kind of this, they don't have to really work that many hours, or they have it kind of easy, and just thinking that people are going to be kind of have real big personalities and don't want to talk to you and that kind of stuff, and it could be the furthest away from that, to be honest. And that's why I said it was eye-opening. As I got there, and it was extremely efficient. They knew exactly what they were doing. They worked. Everyone worked extremely hard. I mean, all the way down the chain, from whether that be the director to the actors, all the way down to the people just bringing in the props or getting other people ready, were just so keen on doing their job and so excited about it. It was they would go for 14 or 16 hours just straight working on filming the scenes and trying to pump it out, and the intensity that kept throughout it. They were just all happy to be there, excited about it, You could tell they loved what they were doing and just wanted to not stop, because they felt like if they stopped, they were going to miss something, awesome. And so it was so cool to be a part of that, and eye-opening to see people that, could easily be like, oh, I'm a Hollywood star or whatnot, and blow you off. And, I was treated so well while I was there. I mean, even Greg Nicotero and, Norman Reedus, obviously those guys, they all took time to come up and talk with me and, spend time with me, get to know me. I actually got to see Norman after over at his kind of little area that he gets to stay. They pull up these trailers to where they're kind of like mini homes where they can stay on site, I think, or at least kind of, get away for a minute. And so I actually got to see me over there for a little bit, which was neat. But just the fact they weren't too big for it. They were, enjoyed talking to you as a person and getting to know you, and really down-to-earth people who really work hard.
That's great, definitely, because there are a number of shows where it won't be like that, where you won't get to be so close to the likes of Reedus, as you said, and just, well, I mean, by that I mean the stars of the show, like you won't get to be close to them, so it's really great that you got that experience with the cast and crew of The Walking Dead.
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. My entire, and they followed up with that. That wasn't a one-time deal. The stunt coordinator has actually called me for some other stuff, or some of the other casting directors have called me from that show because, they just kept me in mind and are good people. And so I've actually almost had some opportunities to do some really, some really cool other gigs because of that. And, you would think being in a short segment of that show that's been on for, a ton of seasons now, that they would almost kind of forget about you, move on. But the fact that, I think that speaks volumes on that. I was a little snippet, and they're still thinking about me and trying to keep me involved with stuff. So, I mean, they're just really great people.
Definitely, and no one forgets the memorable walkers after all.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
The nickname Crackhead Walker, I still, my friends never let that one down. So I got to find something else that'll help change my, give me a different nickname, because it's a little, I got to figure something out. The Crackhead is that's a bit strong at the time.
It is a great nickname, but you might be a bit right. Actually, online I believe he's referred to as Cracked Face Walker, but that's not much better, is it?
No, that's what they said on the show. They're, oh, Crackhead or Crackhead Walker, come here, So it's Cracked Face. Yeah, I guess it's slightly better. We'll go with Cracked Face from now on. So.
Yeah, but definitely some interesting names for your walker. At least you can say people will remember your walker for the names.
That is true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or getting your head stomped in by Norm or Daryl, either way. So that was pretty fun too. That was real, by the way. So he actually had to pull me, by my legs and dragged me out, and then he acted like he was going to stomp on my head, and then they actually switched me out with a dummy, and then he stomped on the dummy's head, and it just exploded everywhere on the ground. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. And if you had to choose, who would you say are your favorite characters in The Walking Dead?
I have to be partial towards Daryl, just because Norman was such a nice guy, and then obviously I think I apologize, but I can't remember his real name. But on the skit, it was Bob was the one I was actually trying to crawl towards. He was it wasn't on for very long, but he was a really nice guy as well, and so I guess having that personal connectivity with knowing those guys behind the scenes is probably, I'm a little biased from knowing them instead of just watching them on TV. But obviously watching the show, I love Rick and all the other major characters. It's obviously a super intriguing drama that has a whole bunch of different people that come and go and get killed off. So I generally just kind of like watching the show now. But like I said, those two in my mind stick out. I really like Norman and Bob, I guess, or Daryl and Bob are cool.
Yeah, definitely. And it's Lawrence Gilliard Jr., I think.
Yes, that's...
Yeah, I hope I'm pronouncing that completely right, but yeah, that's a lot right. I have actually met him in person myself at a convention a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
really nice.
He's a really good guy, really nice. So he was another one that spent some time, getting to talk to me for a minute there. He got called away, which is why I think he didn't actually get to introduce his name, but he was chatting with me about my legs and talking to me a little bit. So he's a good guy.
Definitely. So my final question for you, Daniel, is do you have any upcoming projects that you would like to talk about?
Yeah, well, outside of doing motivational speaking, I actually, upcoming would be the wrong word. I just missed a film with Ben Affleck. Going back to the Walking Dead stuff, they were going to have me on to as a featured part in a movie that Ben was doing. John Lithgow and Ben Affleck were doing a movie where they were trying to look for people, and so I guess I missed the cut. Well, actually, I made the cut, and my part got cut out from there was a rain that happened, and I guess they switched the filming a little bit, so it was no longer there. So. But I've been called a few different times now, and I'm sure or hoping that I'll continue to get some opportunities to do some more work moving forward. I won't be surprised if next week or a couple of months or something happens. As of right now, nothing's on the books, but certainly never know. I'm starting to put myself out there a little bit more. Obviously having a pretty athletic background and missing legs, there's a lot of different things that can be used, whether it's in stunts or different parts in filming. So we'll see. Never know, right?
Yeah, definitely. You've just got to wait to see what the future holds.
Yep. But for now, just gonna keep doing my thing, and like you said, putting yourself out there and focusing on the stuff that's important to me. And if some more filming opportunities come around, I'll definitely jump on those, because when life gives you an opportunity, you take advantage of it, right?
Yeah, definitely. So that's all of our questions for you today, Daniel. It's been a pleasure talking to you on the podcast.
You as well, Rory. Maybe we'll get to have another chat sometime soon.
Definitely, it would be great to talk to you on the podcast again at some point. So we'll talk to you again soon then, and definitely talk to you again soon, and I hope you take care. Bye.
Will do. Thanks.
So make sure to check out our podcast links, check out our website, www.everythinggeekpodcast.com/egp, check out our Facebook page, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekpodcast, check out our YouTube channel, www.youtube.com/user/everythinggeekcast. Check us out on Twitter, twitter.com/everythinggeekp. Check us out on Instagram, instagram.com/official-everythinggeekpodcast. Check out our Mixcloud profile, www.mixcloud.com/everythinggeekpodcast. Email us at the following email, everythinggeekpodcast@gmail.com. Check out our companion podcast, Everything Geek Comiccast, www.facebook.com/everythinggeekcomiccast. Make sure to check out the hosts' YouTube channels. Mine is www.youtube.com/user/Separatist Check out Daniel Cloy's website, www.thecloyconcept.com, and check out channel 1138 where we broadcast live from, www.channel1138.com. Geeks out, everyone.
I hitchhiked from Georgia to California when I was 19 years old. I got drunk and ended up in an acting class. I shouldn't say that, but it's true. And then I went back sober the next week.
So I started doing stage plays. And I had a teacher in high school who actually I talked about yesterday. His name was Morris Block. And he really believed in my talent and encouraged me to